Hi, everyone. My name is Ksenia, and I work on ARC onboarding. So today I'm here to talk about getting the most value out of code reviews. So who here has never deployed broken code to production? No hands? OK. Who here already has and follows a code review process? OK, a few hands. Good. And who thinks their code doesn't need a review? Put your hands down. OK. So as you may have heard from Melissa at the Engineering All Hands, onboarding team has recently implemented an agile process that includes code reviews. And while it was a little bumpy in the beginning, I really appreciate how much time it ends up saving us in the end. So why code reviews? Some people say, always code as if the guy who ends up maintaining your code will be a violent psychopath who knows where you live. Well, I say always code as if the person maintaining your code is going to be you. Because really, it's probably going to be you. So why code reviews? You're going to have fewer bugs. Yay, that's great. Reducing technical debt. If you commit to leaving the code base better than you found it, and you prevent introducing new bugs or complexity into the system, you're going to reduce technical debt, and you're going to be much happier. This is really important. Transfer of knowledge between team members. We're all learning all the time. Technology is always changing. And we are always having people with different levels of experience in different fields on the team. So it's really great to be able to use code review process to transfer that knowledge and kind of share it around. So both the reviewer and the reviewee can benefit from this. Both can learn. And it doesn't matter if it's senior developer reviewing a junior developer code or junior developer reviewing a senior developer code. Everybody can learn something in the process. And what's important for us is happy clients. So nothing breaking in production means happy boss. Happy clients means happy you, ultimately. So the important part is to get the buy-in of the team. If you don't have everyone convinced that code reviews are good for you, nothing good is going to happen. So if you are the person bringing this back to your team and saying, hey, let's do code reviews, you may hear some of this. Our process is fine, but I've always pushed to master. No, not good. So how do we actually get the buy-in of the team? So as a manager, you should allow some time to streamline this process. It's not going to be easy. There will be some adjustments. So don't expect the team to retain the same velocity when they're trying to implement a new process. Automate as much as possible. So that means use linters and testing. Because you don't want people to argue about tabs versus spaces. You don't want to have fights on your team about something like that. So just leave it to the machine. Nobody's going to be mad at a bot or a linter. Establish standards as a team. So this is really important. Everybody needs to feel ownership in the process. And every team works differently. So getting together and talking about what we actually value and what's important to this team at this particular time is really important. Build a culture of trust. I know, the easy part, right? So part of it is, hopefully you already have a team of people that trust each other and can give and receive honest feedback. While many things contribute to team culture, there are a few helpful things your team can implement in order to make code reviews less intimidating process, right? And we'll talk about this later. OK, this is an example of some of the things our team got together and discussed and came up with. This is not the complete list, but I thought some of these would be nice examples. So we work with team members to mentor each other and share our skills with the wider group. So our team decided that it's really important that everybody learns and everybody helps each other out. Another part is dry code. We always hear about dry, but as here it says, Melissa's note is, it's not always easy to write dry code. So instead, first repeat yourself, afterwards refactor. OK, let's dive into some details. So I mostly work with front-end code. So these examples are going to be heavily skewed towards front-end. We can think about the back-end examples maybe in the Q&A. So variable names. This is really important and something that people tend to gloss over. Try to steer clear of generic names like item, element, unit. They're not really helpful or descriptive. We're all working in a publishing world that might not be familiar to developers as a whole. So here we encounter terminology that we may have not seen somewhere before. Learn that terminology and use it correctly. So this is an example of a function. Icon events only tells me that something is going to happen to an icon. It doesn't tell me which icon. It doesn't tell me what events are going to happen. Right? So maybe here we would come up with a better variable name. The same thing, what is it actually happening when it's being initiated? Okay, comments. The thing about comments is why, not how. We can all read code. We know how. But a lot of the times, there's requirements behind the code that are not easily perceptible from the code. If you find yourself writing too many comments, however, maybe you have to rethink your code and make it a little bit more straightforward. And always remember to keep your comments up to date. If the reasoning behind something changes, if the requirements change, go and update your comments. OK, so this is an example of a comment. DAX event, do not remove. Like, I know exactly what not to do with this, right? It's very helpful. And if in the future, the client no longer wants to use DAX for analytics, we're going to remove this. OK, so this comment says document.ready is needed because the script is being included inline and article body. Otherwise, it would run before Bootstrap and Hammer scripts. So in most of Page Builder, we don't have to use document.ready. This is an exception, and that's why this comment documents it here. This is an example of a comment that doesn't really give us a reason. It just says that it prevents body scroll. But from this class, we can already tell that it wants something to not scroll. So here, it's better to put down the reason why we want to prevent the scrolling. OK, functions. We want to write named, not anonymous functions. And that's going to be useful if you're writing unit tests, et cetera, if you want to reuse the code over and over again. The functions should only do one thing and do it well. So this is a pretty good function. It tells you exactly what it does, and that's what it does. It expands and it collapses. This function does not have a name. It's an anonymous function. And if you want to use it again, you're not going to be able to call it somewhere else. This is an example of a function that's 149 lines long. So maybe this is a good time to break it up and split it into multiple functions. OK, performance and maintainability. Here, we're getting into more sort of areas of expertise and more abstract concepts. What is maintainable? What is performant, right? And it's going to change based on what you do. So for example, is there already something for that in the code base? With Page Builder, we have these things called tags, which are bits and pieces of Java code that do a thing that we usually have to do over and over and over again, like an image resizing or string manipulation of some sort, stripping out special characters. SAS mixins can be really great. So for example, for NZME, New Zealand Herald that we launched recently, their site all over has these like arrows that you can click on, and they appear in the top navigation, they appear in galleries. So I created a SAS mixin that takes in a radius and creates one of these arrows. Event listeners, think about what you're actually trying to detect. If you only need the event listener on a child, don't put it on a parent. Don't use being important in your CSS. It's bad. Think about every time you interact with the DOM. That could be expensive, and try to limit your DOM manipulations. Think about image sizes and formats. SVGs can be more performant, but not if they have a bunch of comments inside them. Okay, security. So, some of the people on your team will know more about this, so it's okay not to know about this. But if you know you're working with either user input or with parameters from a URL, make sure that a team member that knows about security can look at your code and certify that it's not going to open you to vulnerabilities. Cookies, the same way. If somebody can overwrite your cookies, bad things can happen. If you're using any sort of plugins or APIs, are they still being supported? Are they legitimate? Are they coming from a legitimate source? Other considerations could be test coverage or documentation. It all depends on your team's definition of done. So that's something to consider as well. Okay, everyone still awake? Good, we're almost there. Okay, so let's summarize. How do we get the most out of code reviews? Give the entire team a say in the process. Give people agency, and then they will feel a sense of ownership over the process. Use linters and tests to reinforce code standards. Again, if you decided that you want to use tabs over spaces, or you want to use ES6 syntax, or you really want like 80% of your code to have test coverage, this is going to be really good for enforcing that automatically. Write pull requests with knowledge sharing in mind. So what do I mean by that? Yes, I know that probably the people you work with already know what you're working on and maybe know how you solved it, but it's useful for maybe more junior people on your team to be able to go into your GitHub repo and look at the pull requests and see like what was the problem, how did you solve it, and why did you implement a solution a certain way. So if you write detailed pull requests, and if as a reviewer you take time to ask questions or clarify something or explain why you think something is a better way to implement something, please do. Allow everyone to be a reviewer. Like, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody can make spelling mistakes, right? And how many times have you debugged for hours and then found out you're missing like a semicolon or like one letter? So everybody can find those: junior developers, senior developers, mid-level developers. Okay. Negotiate feedback styles. So this is something that's really important to establish. Some people like to receive feedback in person. Some people like to receive feedback in private, or on Slack, or via email, or on the pull request. So talk about what are the best ways to give and receive feedback where nobody feels slighted or criticized. So this is something our team came up with. they're pretty straightforward. Sandwich methods, so that means if you have a criticism, say something nice, then your criticism, then say something nice again. But maybe your team doesn't need that. It's fine to come up with your own rules. Just be thoughtful about what you're doing. Okay, and just iterate on the process. So this is going to be something that you want to come back to and evaluate how well something has worked for your team, which things didn't work, which things you maybe said that you aspired to in your code base and nobody cared when they did reviews. So maybe that's something that you can take out. Like if your entire team doesn't care about a specific part of like code standard, then don't say that you're going to enforce it. And just keep iterating and see what works best for your team. So thank you for onboarding team, Shruti and the whole Developer Day team, and the Washington Post Engineering for having us here and feeding us. Questions? Yes?
So you said some of the review feedback is delivered outside of GitHub or traditionally where you post those code reviews, but how do you then maintain that document trail? If 3 weeks later I'm debugging a similar issue, there's advantages to be able to go back to that old pull request that was merged and now look at that document trail. So how do you maintain that if you're moving away from GitHub or these tools to do those reviews?
Well, you can always do both, right? You can write it down, but then, for example, if you are being reviewed and you have questions about the comments on your PR, you can always do it in person and be like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about this thing or that thing. The most important thing here is like team dynamics and how people work together. And I think you can sacrifice a little bit of like having every single comment documented, because honestly, how often do you go through old pull requests and like read all of the comments? Anyone else?
So you talked about getting feedback from everybody. So do you typically have a pull request that is open to the entire team, as opposed to just, say, a subset of the team for those pull requests? And what is your guidance on that?
So we have people working in pods that relate to each client or technology. So usually you will only have people review your code who are in your pod. So they know what you're working on, they know the code base, they know the specific client requirements. So yes, you can open it to multiple people, but usually it's a smaller set of people than the entire team.
Okay.
Okay, thanks guys.